Hey guys, what's going on? So we are into some of the more interesting poetry of this time period. Probably the most famous are these two Carpe Diem poems. I'm actually going to read a third poem with you too, but the two Carpe Diem poems are probably more of the more popular and famous ones, and mainly for the ideology of Carpe Diem, which is just Latin for seize the day. Now, the thing with Carpe, at least back in the '90s or so, that took off. I mean, and it came a lot from things like Dead Poet Society and stuff. If you've never seen that movie, great movie. But there was a lot of this idea about seizing the day and taking advantage of the day you're given. And on the surface, beautiful ideology. We should always take advantage of the time we're given and do big things with it. Here's the problem: people took you know, Carpe Diem, seize the day, and they turned it into, and I hate using this term, it makes me uncomfortable even to say it because I'm an old man, but they took it and turned it into, Carpe Diem for dumb people, which is the term YOLO, you only live once, which is stupid. It's the same concept, seize the day, except one of them, the original Carpe Diem, was about seizing the day and realizing, you don't know if you're going to have tomorrow. So make the best of today in a positive way, okay? Take advantage of your youth, take advantage of the time you're given, whatever it is, and live big right now. And it turned into, live stupid. And because, you got to enjoy your life now because one day you're gonna have to eventually get a job and do all this other stuff. So be dumb as a young person, which is not correct, okay? Very flawed way of thinking, because here's the problem: you can do so much damage to yourself when you're young that it's going to greatly impact your life as an adult, and you don't want to make those mistakes. Okay, nobody's telling you not to enjoy your life, but I mean, come on. The concept of you only live once does not mean that you go out and live the life you have that God's blessed you with like a moron. Okay, so we've got two poems here. I feel like one of them really leans into the more negative sense of Carpe Diem ideology, and the other one is a much more positive one. Okay, so we start out with Andrew Marvell and To His Coy Mistress. The term coy just means to be shy, playing hard to get. And 100%, there is this is one of those things where, like, when you teach older works and people find them, they're literary and they're all that, they're still pretty scandalous. And to be honest with you, this poem is quite scandalous, in my opinion, especially the negative element of Carpe Diem. So let's look at it. It's on page 507. We're going to read it. It's short. And we're going to stop. We're not going to read the whole thing at once, okay? We're going to stop and talk about it. It says, had we but whirled enough in time, this coyness, lady, were no crime. We would sit down and think which way to walk, and pass our long love's day. Thou by the Indian Ganges side shouldst rubies find. I by the tide of Humber would complain. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. So we start off with, he's talking about, hey, look, if we had all the time in the world, then you playing hard to get, not a big deal. We could waste centuries just looking for rubies, and he even talks about, he gives you a span of time. He says, I would love you 10 years before the flood. So that's ancient times before Noah, and you could refuse until the conversion of the Jews. That is the end times. All right. So he said, hey, look, if we had all the time in the world, we'd take it. Okay. He says, and this is one of the all-time stupid lines in poetry. Okay. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. What a horrible image, but whatever. And 100 years would go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest. An age at least to every part. And the last age should show your heart. For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at a lower rate. Okay, that sounds kind of pretty, I guess. He's talking about, like, I would take, an age to gaze upon and worship each part of you. And of course, he even throws in then the last would be for your heart. So it's not all physical, even though that's pretty much all he describes. But he goes from her eyes to her breast. Come on, Now, he sets up this, if we had all the time in the world, this is what I would do. But anytime you start off with if this, there's always going to be a but this. So here's the but. In fact, that's the next line he uses. This is your volta, your turning point. But at my back I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near, and yonder all before us lie deserts of vast eternity. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing songs. Then worms shall try that long preserved virginity, and your quaint honor turn to dust, and into ashes all my lust. The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace. Okay, so he says basically we don't have all the time in the world. And to be honest with you, we might die, you might die tomorrow. And he's like, and I'm saying his words here, y'all, please forgive me. He's saying, and what good will your, honor and your virginity do? And it's in the grave. Which that's why this one to me is the more negative connotation. I mean, this guy's basically trying to convince this girl to make a decision. It's a really bad one, because I want y'all to understand, And again, this is a senior class, so let's just be honest. If this girl was to give into this guy and end up sleeping with him, there's all sorts of negatives. Think about today, the negatives that come from that. This girl could have ended up pregnant, no DNA testing in this time period. So this guy could easily have just dropped her like a bad habit. She would have been seen as damaged goods, and I don't agree with that, but that's the way they would have seen her back then. And now she's got this child, and this guy could leave her, and basically she should have no problem telling him no. But he's trying really hard, okay? Now, that's the first two parts. The last half of this is kind of what makes it poetic, in my opinion. The first part is just kind of dirty to me. But this last part, it's clever, if nothing else. It says, now therefore, while thy youthful hue sits on my skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires. Now let us sport us lie we may, and now like amorous birds of prey, sorry, I'm having a hard time following that. Rather at once our time devour than languish in his slow chapped power. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball, and tear our pleasures with rough strife through the iron gates of life. Thus, though we cannot make our son stand still, yet we shall make him run. The idea here is not only is he saying we shouldn't just, because you get the image of the girls told this guy, hey, we need to slow down, we need to take it slow. And he's like, we don't have time to take it slow. In fact, we need to go faster and let's take advantage of our life. It's a really clever way of him trying to push this agenda, which I feel like is definitely, when we take the term carpe diem, it's like, you've got limited time, so take advantage of it. That doesn't mean make bad decisions, though, okay? And this would be a bad decision, in my opinion. All right. I'm not just saying that because from a spiritual standpoint, where obviously I feel like it is. I'm saying it from a practical standpoint, and the fact that this poor girl, there's a lot of negative that could come out of this relationship for her. Okay. So there's your negative. Let's look at the more positive one. Robert Herrick. The title's called "To the Virgins to Make Much of Time," and you may think that we're going in the same direction because the term virgins are mentioned, but we're not. Okay. Four Stances, very famous. I love Dream Theater. It's one of the bands I really like. I wouldn't say they're one of my favorites, but it's definitely, when I was growing up, they were. They have a whole and they're strong musical guys, and they had a whole 30-minute song where this poem was echoed in it at one point. First experience I ever had of it, and then when I heard it in English class, I was like, wow, I know exactly what that's coming from. So kind of neat for me. So I'd like to share it with you. I think this one gives you a much more positive view of Carpe Diem. Okay. Okay, so here we go. First two stanzas of four. The first two are going to give you a metaphor, okay? And they're very common metaphors, let's just be honest. But gather you rosebuds while you may, old time is still a-flying, and this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. Okay, here's our first one. Okay, he's talking about, our life being like these rosebuds, which, they're beautiful for a time, but then they start to fade and they're not as pretty and then they die. So, and it's limited, very small window here. In the second stanza, the glorious lamp of heaven, the sun, the higher he's a getting, the sooner will his race be run, and nearer he is to setting. Okay, then we get the image of the sun. Same thing, in the morning when it's rising and it's beauty and it's a new day and everything, there's so much potential. And then as it goes through to the point where it sets and everything gets dark and everything stops. Okay, so he's comparing life to these two things, that, there's this brief window and you have to take advantage of it while you have it. All right. Stanza 3, that age is best, which is the first, when youth and blood are warmer, but being spent, the worse and worse times still succeed the former. So now he talks about the age is best, which is the first. This is your youth. He says, this is the age where things are the greatest. He says, but once those are gone, the worst, then he says there's a worse time that comes. That's old age. That's poor Mr. Morse here. He says, and then there's a worse time even than that, and that would be death, okay? So he's like, enjoy your youth because eventually you're going to get older, and that... Sorry, phone call. My phone, my recording software blocks text messages, but it doesn't block phone calls. Sorry, let's back up and look at that again. If you got a weird pause, it was the phone breaking through. All right, so it says the age is best, which is the first. In other words, you've got to enjoy your youth, and because eventually you're going to get older, like Mr. Morrison. You're going to slow down. You're going to have to go to doctor's visits, and you're not going to be able to stay up as late. Your eyes are going to start to fade, things like that, and then of course death being the worst. So then you get the last stanza, the money stanza here, where he says, then be not coy, but use your time. And while you may go marry, for having lost at once your prime, you may forever tarry. So the image here again is do what you can while you're young. take advantage of the time. And then once you've lived big, you have a chance in your old age to slow down and enjoy that. This doesn't mean make bad choices, though. It means take advantage of the times you've got. Stop thinking you've got time to do other things because you may not. So let's take these two theories and let's put them. One of the questions I ask you is about how this works in a religious stance, because Carpe Diem ideology obviously can be very against a biblical worldview. There's also a positive one too. There's this idea that God's blessed you with a certain amount of time, and you should use it. You don't know how much it's going to be, so take advantage of the time you're given, because who knows when the end will come. Nobody wants to be morbid, but you can't tell how much longer you're going to have. One of the things that drives me nuts at school is to watch you guys complain like on a Monday morning about, I just wish it was the weekend again. I can't wait for Friday. Tuesday or Wednesday starts to get here and you're counting down until the weekend. And heaven forbid we get close to a break. We're 2 weeks away when I'm filming this the first time. We're 2 weeks away from midwinter break. And I know some of you are counting down the hours until you get to have a week off. That to me is a tragedy, because if all we do is we wish for breaks. Think about how much you're in school for 10 months. I guess 9 months if we take your breaks up. Let's say 10 months, and of those 10 months, one of them is added up to breaks. You got 2 weeks for Christmas, a week for midwinter break, a week for Thanksgiving, a week for which one am I missing? Spring break, midwinter, Thanksgiving, Christmas. So 5 weeks total, a little bit over a month. Are you going to wish through 10 months of your life or 9 months of your life to get to just those 5 weeks? Because that's not a good thing. Imagine what's going to be like when you're an adult and you have a regular job and you get 2 weeks off at Thanksgiving, for vacation, if you're lucky. Otherwise, what do you do? Just going to wish for the weekends? That's 5 out of 7 days you're wishing were over. That is not a good use of your time. That is not seizing the day. And that is not being grateful for the time that God's given you. I realize that there's nothing exciting about coming to school on a Thursday. But the fact is that there's so many, whether it's just interacting with your friends, whether it's going to that favorite class, whether it's, learning that, chemistry or that math that you're going to need to become, a professional one day. Those things are all things to be thankful for and to take advantage of. The time with your friends, you're not going to have that forever. You know how many kids from my high school class I was close to, I still speak to? Not a single one. I don't speak to anybody. All right. I mean, goodness, people from college that I was really close to, I never speak to. And, yeah, that's me. I get that. And a lot of you may stay really close. But the fact is that you're never going to have this time back. And you want to take advantage of it because you never know, when the end is going to come. All right. So we want to be, seizing the day. Carpe diem. We want to do that in a positive way, and to be the best person we can possibly be, not to use it as an excuse to drink so much you pass out or any of that kind of nonsense where it's typically stolen. It's one of the devil's tricks to take something good and turn it to something bad. Really, this is intended to be something where we think about the fact that the transience of life, that we really don't have that much time when we think about it, even if you live to be 80. I mean, the years go by quick. I mean, if 80 is, the time span you're given, I'm already halfway there. Which I don't have 80 years in me. I can promise you that. So I'm got more than half of my life in my rear view at this point. And I want to take advantage of every day I have going forward. I try my best not to catch myself wishing for the end of a week. It's a Monday when I'm filming this. I'm not sitting here going, man, I can't wait till this is over with and I can sleep in or something like that. I want to enjoy making these videos. I want to enjoy teaching my classes. I want to enjoy interactions I have with my students. I want to enjoy going home and, interacting with my kids. I'll take advantage of every moment I have because I don't know how many more I have. Guys, neither do you. Just because I'm all old and unhealthy doesn't mean I have less time than some of you. And let's hope that's not the case. I hope every one of you lives to be 150. But, we can't bank on that. All right. I know, long speech there for 2 short poems, right? I promise to do better next time. All right, guys, that's going to be my closing statement there. And I hope that if you didn't get anything out of the poems, at least you got something out of the conversation. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop. It's 15 minutes. That's enough of my yammering, right? I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful, evening. And that when you come back tomorrow and we start, I'm not even sure what we're covering next. Let's see. Let's flip ahead. John Middleton. Yay. One of my favorites. So we're going to have some good stuff come. All right. Keep that in mind. We will talk to you again tomorrow.